What's up, everybody? This is Logan Hanks with the Living Fully Loaded podcast. I've got an awesome guest for you guys today, and this is it's pretty cool for me because as we were actually just talking off air, it's been a while, almost 2 years, I guess now. It's as we're entering into May. May 29 of 2020, I had this guest on, and that is the awesome Jack Carr. I'm glad to have you back.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it seems like one long day since we last talked. It's been busy, but it's all good.
It has, man. I feel like your busyness is it picks up more and more steam.
Crazy. Yeah, I mean the Amazon series comes out July 1st, so that started filming last March, so March 2021, and we finished this last August and into post production. But before that, we were working on the scripts and doing all that sort of thing. Really, me with the showrunner at first, who's like the kind of like overall director when you have multiple directors with episodes, and getting those right, and then into the filming, and it was crazy. So doing that, writing the book, podcast, all the rest of it, it's been good. It's been great.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you strike me as a guy that enjoys having your iron in many fires. Would you say that's the case, or do you just find your iron in many fires?
That is a very good question. That is a very good question, and I don't know I have a good answer because if I guess I was if I made money the old-fashioned way, meaning if I inherited it, would I be working as hard? I don't know. You just never know. You never know what that stuff does to you. I mean, I know I would have been a SEAL. I mean, that was hardwired into me. I know I would write thrillers because that's what I wanted to do. All other than be a SEAL was to write these novels. I mean, all day, every day, everything else that supports that.
Yeah.
I didn't anticipate at the outset. I just thought you wrote a book and sent it to New York and it got published, and then you started the next one. Maybe you do an interview or two. Like, I didn't know all these other things. And maybe that's how it was in 1985 or 75
Yeah.
or something like that, when there weren't all these other options to kind of build a readership or a brand, for lack of a better term, using platforms that are now available to everyone. So, back in the day, if you didn't get a review in the New York Times and you didn't get, on a late night show or a morning show, that was about it. That was about all you could hope for. And then a book tour. And, that's like 60 people, 100 people, 200 people, kind of depending, shaking hands and saying thank you. Those were your touch points. And then you could get back to work. But now, well, it's a different time. And the outlier would be the one that could get away with doing that. And our outliers, like I'm sure, like J.K. Rowling, she does not need to go on book tour. She does not need to be on social media. She does not need to do these things. She does not need to build a brand, build a reader. So there are, same thing with like a Twilight or a 50 Shades of Grey or something like that, the real ones that are just kind of different in that respect. But if you're doing anything else and actually building that readership, then today people want that authenticity. They want that engagement. And I also really love saying thank you to people who risk on me as a new author, or told a friend, because that's why I can do what I'm doing. What I love to do writing is because someone did that and they told you, or they told somebody else, and then they told someone, and they kind of built this word of mouth. And then these platforms today, they just help. They're like this electronic word of mouth. So what you would have had to have, let's say, around a water cooler 30 years ago, or on a smoke break, something like that. Well, now you can do that virtually. And whether you're telling your group, your circle of friends on a social media platform, that maybe might be 2 people or 5 or 35 million, and everything. You get to do that. What you would do around at water cooler on a smoke break, you get to do it virtually today. So I sincerely appreciate everybody that's done that. And I still try to get back to everybody and thank them, or give them that heart at the end of the day for taking the time to comment, or taking the time to follow me on a social channel, or to read the book and tell a friend. So that's kind of how I use it.
Well, man, I think that you're a prime example of me of being good. It's kind of like The Rock. The Rock is huge. He's in every movie he's in. It seems like it has huge. Yeah, he's physically huge for sure. But like every film he's in, I feel like it just does awesome. Everybody loves The Rock, but The Rock is really good to other people. You know, he's nice to his fans. He reaches out to his fans. He tries to talk to them, and you are the same way. I mean, I'll bug you sometimes. I'm sure I'll send you a message from time to time asking you something, and you always write me back. And I mean, those little things that means a lot to people. Like used to, like you said, it is interesting because social media in in a lot of ways, and I've done it myself. I view it negatively often. You know, there's a lot of negative elements that come with social media, but being able now to interact with people that, like you said, back in the '80s or something, that you never would have been able to, um,
Mhm.
like like you, I know. Let's take the author of Rambo for instance, First Blood. I mean, like, you know, if you didn't go to one of these book signings or something, you weren't just picking up the phone and calling him and talking to him. You know, you didn't have that access to them. So that is a really cool element to the world we live in now. I guess the digital age.
Oh yeah, like for me as a kid, I didn't even know when an author's book was coming out. It was people weren't really on with recurring characters even that one book a year. I mean, you had a few like Clive Cussler did that. Stephen King started writing not recurring characters really, but one book a year. But those were really some of the first two to do that. And then it really late '90s, early 2000s, it became what you did. If you had a
Yeah,
recurring character, people wanted that book a year. So you have like Vince Flynn, you have Brad Thor, you have Daniel Silva, you have those kind of guys writing one book a year. But back in the '80s, before that, with the David Morrell book, who wrote Rambo, you had no idea when his next one was coming out unless you're in
yeah,
publishing circles or got some sort of a periodical that would talk about when these next books were coming out. But you couldn't count on them every year. You'd have
gotcha.
to wait for that, and it
Yeah,
might be 2 years, it might be 2.5 years. You just didn't know. Tom Clancy the same way. It wasn't a book a year. So now it is with the people that are writing for the estate because that's what people want with these recurring characters. But it wasn't like that after Hunt for Red October. But it is now. So that means
what
you're writing a book a year and you're doing all the things that you need to do to support that.
what changed that? Why? What flipped the script from, you know, the author kind of almost, I guess, finding his inspiration for the books, and then the switch to, man, we expect one every year, because I feel like that's a lot of pressure for one, having a book every year.
Yeah, yeah, it is. But I think it's audience demand. I think it's readership demand. I think the market started to demand it because they saw some authors doing it, and then it became what you did. So if you have a recurring
Yeah,
character and it's successful, meaning financially successful for the publishing house, they're not going to encourage you to not write a book a year. That's for
yeah,
sure. Because one, the market wants it, and two, the publishing house wants it because they're making money on it. And very few
right.
books actually make back the investment of the publishing house. It's kind of like the Avengers movie. Like the Avengers make all the money for all the other films that no one else sees.
Yeah,
With publishing. Stephen King, John Grisham, James Patterson, Baldacci, like those guys, like they make the money for everybody else, type of a thing. So mine was rare, and then my first book made back its investment, and it was profitable for Simon and Schuster. But that is not usually the case, especially with a first novel. But thankfully, it was for mine. But I think that's what it was. I think it was audience
yeah.
slash leadership demand and publishing houses seeing that demand and then encouraging their authors to meet that demand.
Now that is something I'm really intrigued by. Like, how do you find? I've got one question that I don't know if you can answer. It's about James Reese, but I'll go there first before the other. Or no, first I'm gonna ask, how do you continue to find the inspiration for the new stories? Like when you finish a book and you're ready to roll into the next one, what gets your gears rolling on what James Reese is gonna face in the next one?
Yeah, so I have a lot of ideas. They're already out there in the form of a paragraph or a sentence or a theme or something like that. And so as I start one, like the one I'm writing now, book six, I think I know where seven's going. I think I know what I want to do with seven, but it's just out there. It's not a worry. It's just, okay, I think I know where that's going. And then as I write this one, six, it's starting to, okay, become more clear where it needs to go. So as
Gotcha.
characters develop, the storyline gets more intricate, I do some research and weave some other things in, then it becomes more clear where the next one needs to go. That's how it's been thus far anyway, and that's worked out. But I start with a theme, a title, and a one-page executive summary, kind of like what you'd read on the back of a book jacket to get you excited
Yeah.
about reading it. So I start with that, take that, turn that into the outline, and then outline, boom, finish that, and start turning that into the novel. So that's how it's gone for all of them so far, and I think it works really well for me. Just need to get on a little bit better of a schedule, as so I'm not so stressed down to the wire. But yeah, working on that. More work in progress.
Well, I mean, and like I said in the beginning, your irons you got your iron in so many fires. Like, I feel like I know with the TV series that's coming up on Prime that, dude, I'm stoked for. Chris Pratt, I'm a big fan of Chris Pratt. And so I'm super pumped for that. But, I know you've also been going to the set of that some. And so, I mean, all of these things are obviously interfering with your normal writing routine.
Yeah, there's no such thing for me yet as a normal writing routine. I need to get there and block off like the first half of a day, and not post to social media, not open an email or even look at email, and just know that every meeting, every interview, everything I'm going to look at digitally is going to happen after noon or after 1
Yeah.
p.m. Mountain Time or something like that. But thus far, I felt like I've had to do what you would do if you're in a startup. If you're starting something in your garage, you don't really have the luxury of being able to say, I'm just going to start my interaction with customers, with clients, potential customers, clients at noon or 1. That's just what I'm going to do. Like, that's really not a path to success. If they don't know that you exist yet and you're working it out of your garage, working on your widget or whatever it might be, like,
Yeah.
you got to be all. You got to be doing it all. You got to be building that brand, building that business, doing the customer service, putting the packages together, making sure that everything is top notch. So the product is the best it can possibly be going out the door. And then you're doing all those things you need to do to support it, to build that client base, that customer base. So it's the same thing. Same thing with writing. There's really not a difference. The product is the book. It has to be as good as it can possibly be. So you always have to have that product be the best it can be. But then there's all the other things that go, like this iPhone. This is very convenient and it's awesome, but it comes in a certain packaging for a reason. There's a difference between opening up that old BlackBerry back in 2003 and then opening this up a few years later in the box that it came in. As much thought went into the packaging for this thing as went into what's actually inside it. So I took a lot of lessons from companies really across industry, and send out these book packages now with the launch of the new book and that sort of thing. So I try to do everything that I do, whether it's the podcast, whether it's a social media post, a response to someone, as much thought goes into any sentence in a social media post as goes into a sentence in the novel, because people have trusted me with that time and they're never going to get it back. So I just don't repost a funny meme, as funny as they can be. I don't do that. I try to add value to people's lives with everything I do. That's kind of the guiding principle, because if they're trusting me with time they're never going to get back, there is really nothing more serious than that. So I take that responsibility just as seriously, and put my all into everything that I do.
Yeah. That is interesting you say that too, because I do see some of the really big pages on Instagram, and I'll follow them. It'll be somebody that does awesome stuff. They have a really cool story, but all they do is share dumb memes. And again, I enjoy some funny memes, but like I didn't follow. Yeah. Yeah. Like I like them.
But I don't think I need to probably reposting them. Like that's something. Yeah.
No, and
funny memes.
Yep. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, obviously I get it from what they're doing. It's a marketing standpoint. They put the funny memes up and somebody shares them and that shares them. And so then they just get the more exposure. So, I mean, it's marketing 101, I guess, but that's not the reason why I'm following like this person. Like like you said, there are funny pages that I can follow for that. And I mean, and with that, I'm interested your take, because I consider you a history buff. And as I told you, I'm a farmer. We're in a weird time where we're seeing like food shortages. Like I'm constantly, every day I get an update about food shortages, and I'm curious, man, on where do you see it going? Because I read an article a while back, and it was talking about Germany, and I think it was back. It was either World War One or World War Two, but it was talking about a loaf of bread got so expensive that nobody except for like the ultra rich could afford it due to like inflation and all these things. What's your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we can learn from the pages of history. We haven't proven that we do that very well. Recent example being Afghanistan. We didn't even have to go back to Genghis Khan or Alexander the Great to pull a few lessons. We could go back to three British excursions in the 1800s, early 1900s. We could go to the Soviet experience from 79 to 89, and or our own experience after being there for a little bit, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 20 years.
Yeah,
We did not take those lessons and apply them to the current situation in the form of wisdom, and
yeah,
that's why I do. So I am not hopeful. But back to your question about the food shortages, we can go back to those pre-World War II days, and we can see that inflation, and we can see pictures, wheelbarrows full of money for a loaf of bread type of a situation. Which, what does that do? It benefits the ultra wealthy because they can still afford that bread. And what else can they do? They can buy the businesses from people who need to sell that business in order to feed their families.
right.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot going on there, and I hope we do not get to that point. But it's something to be aware of. I hope that our leaders are aware of it. But if we have a few more
That's a big
historians,
hope.
and yeah, if we had a few more historians in Congress, a few more farmers in Congress, it's a great quote, Eisenhower. I hope I don't mess it up too bad here, but it was about when your plowshare is like a budget, and you're
Oh,
or a pencil, and you're 1,000 miles from a cornfield.
did I
Uh,
lose you?
there you go. You back? You
Yeah.
there?
There we go.
All right.
There we go.
So people can check me, they can look it up, but he said something along the lines of your when your plow is a pencil and you're 1,000 miles from a cornfield, like, hey, there's going to be some issues.
Yeah.
So if we had more farmers in Congress, small business owners in Congress, historians in Congress, and less people who were all how many, I don't forget the percentage of lawyers in Congress, but it's quite a few. It is
Oh yeah.
quite a, and like that, and they want to right now, what do they want to do? They want to forgive student loan debt, but probably not any debt that you have for something on your farm or for a tractor or for anything, and you're producing food for the country. And I mean,
You
you
know.
as the you as like farmers in general, like,
Yeah.
are you me? And just because they want to solidify a base of voters who get their debt forgiven for a choice that they made to go to college, which is probably useless anyway. I
Well,
mean,
man. Hey, you're speaking my language.
the future of the country. But when you
Yeah.
see things like that, and they're talked about seriously, it's it's tough to remain hopeful. Though I try.
Well, that's man. That is one of my biggest beefs with it all. Like, I mean, I did not go to college. I don't have student debt. I went to tech school. I learned a trade, and then came back to farming. Now I'm a huge proponent of trade school, man. I mean, there's great money. There is endless career opportunities in that, and I encourage people to go that route. But I still would never expect someone to pay for my trade school. Like I don't understand this weird entitlement age where like we're supposed to, and like you said, they chose to go. It ain't like they weren't drafted to go to college. Like they choose to go here. So it's very frustrating to me that we're in this weird situation where everybody thinks that you ought to pay for their stuff.
All right, you there?
There you go. Yep. Back.
Brutal.
Hey,
Like
like
the
I
wind
said, though,
comes up. Like the wind comes up here. I have so sorry. I have a Starlink. What is it called? The Starlink thing, the Elon Musk's
yeah.
deal. I have to order, but who knows when that's going to arrive. So, yeah. All right. But
No, you're good. You're good.
it drives me crazy. What were we just talking about?
Man, we were talking about how these crazy entitlement age we live in, where you know somebody chooses to go to college, and then we all have to foot the bill for it. Which I tell you what even has got me more fired up here lately, um, because it's just all over the news, and I mean I'm all the time. I feel like taxes. All I do is pay taxes, and um, all right, this stuff going on with Ukraine. It's obviously a bad deal, but every day I feel like it's more money being sent to Ukraine. And to me, I'm just like, man, that is like our tax dollars. Which I mean, at this point, what difference does it make as much of our tax dollars as they blow? Like, I mean, what do you take? What's your take on all that?
Well, on the tax side, obviously, I mean, it's yeah, I don't even know where to start. Like, it's just so ridiculous how much money how many people don't pay taxes, which is fine, but they're being told that they're being overtaxed. Meanwhile, they're not paying anything. And then the people who are paying taxes is just wasted, essentially flushed down the toilet. I mean, the fraud, waste, and abuse when they have those reports come out, and you hear very little about them here and there, like the study
Yeah,
on this or that cost what of our money? It's not Congress's money, it's the people's money. And Congress is essentially wasting it, obviously, in order to get reelected. Like, that's, it's not a waste to them because they're spending it on these things that they hope will get them votes to get reelected. And it's really interesting. This is one of the most interesting parts, is that how everyone that is called to public service as a politician also happens to be such a savvy investor. It's
this is
amazing
true.
how those things just go together. How you go, yeah, go to Congress and whatever it's 80,000, 100,000, 120,000, 200, whatever that it is, but then you make some wise investment choices there during your time in the seat, or your husband does, your wife does, your brother does, your children do. It's amazing how they just the call to service and family investment savvy just go together, and they leave with
Yeah.
millions. It's incredible how it happens.
Did,
It's just uncanny. Uncanny.
did you read Red Handed
No,
by
I
Peter
have it over here
Schweizer?
though. It's in my pile. I think it's right here actually. I see a red book. It's right there, and I have not read it yet, but it's on my reading list to
It
maybe
is.
have the podcast and talk to him a little bit about it.
You will enjoy and hate it. That's how I was. I enjoyed it, but I hated it because everybody is crooked up there. I don't care if they're a Democrat. I don't care if they're a Republican. They all got their hand in the freaking cookie jar. And exactly like you said, it just kills me. These guys get in here and they're not making like millions, but then when they get out, they're multi-millionaires. Like even the Obamas, what are they? I saw some crazy number. They're worth like, oh hell, it was like way into the hundreds of millions or something now. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
mean, so, and I even had seen a thing one time because I know the people will pay, and like Hillary Clinton was getting 500,000 to go speak somewhere. And I'm like, man, you would have to pay me 500,000 to go hear her speak.
Oh, it's brutal. Yeah, it's interesting how that happens. Yeah, Clinton Global Initiative, that whole thing. I mean, it's all out there. It's just crazy. It's just crazy how all this is connected. And then you look at lobbyists, and you look at politicians, and you look at people who go are at think tanks that then go to work for politicians, who then go to work for lobbying firms. Just going back all and forth between these things is this triad out there. And I mean, the military-industrial complex is a real thing, but it's not just military. They're the
Yeah.
pharmaceutical industry. Obviously, there's all sorts of data on that, and they're kind of easier to not even vilify. They do a good job of vilifying themselves, but similar type of a situation. It's an industry, and there's a lot of money out there being spent on lobbying, even with reforms in place. And it's they certainly give me a lot to work with in my novels, and makes how I treat some politicians and senior level military people and lobbyists, and that makes it. They give me a lot of material, and it's very therapeutic to have my character James Reese take them out in many creative ways. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Very, very peaceful ways.
Yeah, they get a little brutal. Amazon was a little nervous about a couple things when we started making the series with Chris Pratt, but they were fantastic to work with. They actually expressed a
Are
couple concerns here and there, and then but they got right on board, so it was cool.
are we gonna get to see the? I'll tell you what. I was actually glad when Prime picked it up because I was like, one, this could not be a like regular cable TV show and not do it well because I mean, part of what I love in these books, I mean, I love the violence. Like I grew up watching violent movies, like Predator, Commando. Those were like two staples of mine. I mean,
Oh yeah.
so I mean, I love that, and so I was wondering, are we going to get to see the infamous death scene where the guy wraps his intestines around the tree?
I'm gonna have to make you wait, and the listeners, viewers, wait for that one. I will not tell, but yeah. So just stand by for July 1st.
Oh man, I'm super pumped, man. I saw the trailer came out. It looks super awesome. Um,
Yeah,
is there
actually
going
the
to
first.
be?
So that's a 15-second thing. So I just learned this, 2 months ago. Yeah. So the first glimpse is like a 15-second deal. So that's out there. Next comes the teaser. I think it's about 2 minutes, and then comes the trailer, and the trailer is like 2.5 minutes or something, some give or take. So
Yeah.
there's two more in the waiting in the wings, and right now every Tuesday I have photos from set that for Terminalist Tuesdays. I post those on social. So talk a little bit about the show, what it was like, post those. But then yeah, still have the teaser and the trailer to look forward to, and they're pretty awesome. Like I'm a big fan of trailers. I mean, growing up in the '80s and those same movies, I
Yep.
thought those trailers were awesome. Just going to a movie and seeing the trailers was something to look forward to.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So in these two, like being a child of the '80s and growing up like that and loving those trailers, I am I'm fired up for how they both came out, and I think everybody's gonna love them.
When will the? Is there any idea when the teaser will drop?
There is, but I think I'm still sworn to secrecy. Yeah,
Oh
I think they have a
man,
formula.
dang,
I think they
yeah.
have a formula as to how close they are to drop. So I think they've got that figured out with their.
Man, I am really really pumped. And again, like I said, I don't think that y'all could have got a better guy to lead it. Because I mean, I oftentimes Hollywood, there's somebody that I love. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Again, I talked about him earlier, but he has disappointed me so much in real life lately, and I'm like, man, come on, like. He's made some dumb statements, and then he's even talked about being a vegan, kinda, and stuff. And I'm like, "You're killing me, man. You're killing me." When then you got Chris Pratt, and he's like, comes from sheep farmers or something, like has this background, which obviously, man, I'm a farmer, so I always appreciate my fellow farmers in there. And so then seeing him from that background, and he hunts. I know you and him. I think y'all have done some elk hunting and stuff together.
Yeah.
If I have y'all done a few hunts now?
Just that one. We had a nice time together in the backcountry here in Utah, but yeah, he has that sheep farm. He posts about it, and he's so serious about it. Obviously, you get that feeling from talking to him in person, obviously, but then also the way he posts about it and talks about it, and
Yeah.
it's a real deal. It's not just like, hey, I'm gonna go buy a ranch. It's no, it's serious. And he's awesome. I mean, he is just a great human being. And even before I knew him, that was one of the things that I knew would be important to this story was to have someone portray the protagonist, James Reese, who was likable off screen because he was going to do something on screen that maybe the audience, the viewers, were going to have to forgive him for. But I wanted an inherently likable character and actor to portray that character. So an actor that was going to have to take it dark, have to do something new that hasn't been that actor hasn't done before, and Chris Pratt fit that to a T. And that was well
Yeah.
before I even knew that I had a connection to him. And luckily, a friend of mine knew him and gave him the book back in November of 2017, so a few months before the first book came out. And he read it, loved it, and wanted to option it. But yeah, and I thought back to, since we're talking about Commando and Predator and all that sort of a thing, I thought back to Magnum in the '80s. Like everybody loved Magnum, And
Yep.
I did as a kid. My mom did. My dad did, for different reasons, probably. But I needed something like that because you're going to spend time with this character. So whether I'm writing about him in the pages of the book or someone's sitting down to watch one episode or all 8 episodes, you're spending time. Once again, back to that time. You're spending time in the pages of this novel. You're spending time in front of that television watching this series. And are you going to want to spend time with a character you don't like? And for me, the answer is no. If I sit down and I'm
Yeah.
watching something, it needs to be character driven. I need to be on a journey with this character. I need to like this character. I need to want to have a beer with this character. I need to want to have coffee with the character. And because there's so many choices also. So it's not like
Yeah.
nothing. There's only 3 channels and one outlier over here. Like, okay, 4 choices. I guess we're watching this. It's the best. Now there's so many choices out there. You get to pick,
Yeah.
and you get to who you're going to spend that hour with, or what book you're going to spend 5 hours with, or if it's an audiobook, 10, 12, 14 hours. You get to pick. And so why not pick someone who you want to hang out with? And I thought that was very important as I started to create this character, and continues to be important today.
Yeah. So that is something. I mean, Chris definitely from Guardians of the Galaxy or any of these, man, he is a guy that like you said, man, I would love to have a beer with the guy.
Yeah, he's
And
great.
there are so many in Hollywood that I enjoy their movie, but I have no desire to have a beer with them,
Right,
like
yes.
afterwards.
Sometimes you got to separate it. And, from the outside looking in, what we see, and by we, I mean just like most people across the country, that maybe they turn on the Academy Awards, maybe they turn on Golden Globes, or maybe they see a cut of a speech on those programs on social or on the news, and they don't even watch the whole program. But what they see is that star, maybe a producer, maybe a director, going up to get an award and making a speech that might not necessarily connect with someone in the heartland of America.
Yeah.
And that's their vision of Hollywood. But what I saw when I got on set was 350 people making this thing happen each and every day. And, one of them is the main star. And then one of them is the director. And then there's a showrunner. And there's a group of us that are executive producers. But so how many is that right there? That is maybe 5 people that I just named, 6 people. Well, there's 350 people on set, and they are all just trying to put food on the table for their families. They're trying to be the best they possibly can be at that job because they have to be, because there's so much competition. And this thing is like
Yeah.
a Lamborghini that is roaring around the track and roaring down the road. And if anybody is not doing their job and isn't doing it to the best, not of just their ability, but the best in the industry, then that thing is going to tink, 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 and need to go in to the mechanic and get checked out. Not just any mechanic, the Lamborghini mechanic. So
Yeah.
that's how specialized every single person is there on set. And I remember I'd heard things before I got there, just throughout my life, like, oh, there's these weird rules in Hollywood where you can't plug in a light if that's not your job. Now I get it. Because if you're doing that and you're not doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing, that car is going off the track. That engine is starting to make a little noise, and it has to be running. It has to be optimal performance, because you are down. I mean, to the second on a lot of these scenes, you might just get one explosion in some cases, and there's
Yeah.
safety concerns. There's all sorts of things happening. So everybody has to be so good, and everybody was so good at their job. And so that was my real takeaway: is that how normal all those people were, and how, like in any job, you want to be the best that you can be at it. And so it was so cool. People would stop by this thing that it's called Video Village. So those of us that are executive producers, we have the chairs and the screens and your headsets, and you're listening and you're watching and all that sort of a thing. But the person from, let's say, hair and makeup would come by and say, hey, my cousin is going to Marine boot camp tomorrow. Would you mind signing a book? And I always had a box of books there, and I'd sign it, and somebody else would come by and say, my son's going on his first deployment. Would you mind signing a book? And I'd be right there, and I'd have all these books and sign them, and
That's
everyone was
awesome.
so great. And the other producers who have done tons of these things said they've never really seen that on a set before. People come up to the author, come over to Video Village, come up to the executive producer area, and talk about Land Cruisers, talk about hunting, talk about knives, talk about guns, talk about ammo. They're like, this is different. This is weird. And so many people on set also came up to me and said that, hey, this set feels different than any set I've ever been on in Hollywood. So that was really cool to hear that. And that's really testament to Antoine Fuqua up there at the top, like as the director setting that tone. He's like the commanding officer, and then you have Chris Pratt down here at the tactical level setting that tone with everybody else. And then I could also see, let's say, if you had a crazy director or like a crazy lead star, well, guess what? Tone they're setting at those levels, and I can see it
Yeah,
being
yeah.
very odd environment in which to work. But in this case, it was fantastic, and it couldn't have been a better experience.
Well, that's awesome to hear. Because again, man, I'm especially like, I mean, again, I'm here in Tennessee. I am so far away from California. You know, that's not what I see, and so all I'm knowing is what I hear, and it is refreshing to hear that, and because it's kind of like a loudspeaker, man. You know, I always feel like the loudest ones are not always the majority, and so that's good, and it does pump me up. And I mean, there's some awesome casts, even like Taylor. Is it Taylor Kitsch? How do you say it,
Taylor Kitsch,
man?
he's
I
awesome. He
I
is so
love that
cool.
dude.
He's so great. Friday Night Lights. All my wife's friends were like, number 33. Like, yeah, he was so cool. So cool. So great to work with. Still texting back and forth with him now. And he's just a great guy. So and the character he plays, man, there was not another person that was better for that role. Like, he everybody crushed it. Like, everybody brought their A game. And everybody was so kind. Jean Triplehorn is amazing.
Yeah.
I got to spend a lot of time with her. She was fantastic. Everybody was just like so cool and so normal and so accessible, and like, it was just like they were just normal people just doing a job. But yeah, I can't say enough good things about everybody.
Now, do you find yourself? Because I'm imagining, like if I was sitting there, I feel like if I was sitting there in your shoes, and I'm watching a story that I came up with in my head, and I wrote it on paper. Now I'm watching it be turned into reality here. Do you have a moment where you have to be like, "Oh, this is real life. Like I'm not actually dreaming right now."
I don't know. I mean, I'm like going at full speed all the time, and I feel like that one every day. But also, I'm in this full on sprint every day, so I don't really take that breath to step back and look at it through that lens, because there's always something else to do. But I'm always
Yeah.
100% appreciative each and every day of all of it. That's for sure. But as a child of the '80s, I also not only expected it, but worked towards it by being that fan of the genre, that reader from the beginning, that student of the genre by reading all these books as I grew up. So I didn't just wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm going to give this writing thing a try. Oh, what should I have been reading for the last 40 years? Oh, okay, I'll just go back and read that. It was so nice to read
Yeah.
those books through the lens of a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old,
Yeah.
13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And so I got to read it through this lens of someone living in the time that the book is written, especially in the thriller genre, where you have a lot of political thrillers, you have the military thrillers, you have the techno thrillers, you have all these things. But essentially, they obviously borrow from real life and the technology of the day, mindsets. There's all these different things that are woven in there that I got to read at the time and didn't have to go back and read Hunt for Red October 30 years after its publication or something along
Yeah.
those lines. I got to read it right then when I was in fifth grade, sixth grade. And then I got to discover all these other books, all these other amazing authors, David Morrell, who we talked about, A.G. Quinnell, J.C. Pollock, Mark Olden, all these guys, Louis L'Amour, all these guys who I read growing up, that became a part of my foundation. Just like if you are a high school athlete or a college athlete or whatever it is, it's part of your foundation. So I was training for the
Yeah.
military, and then I was reading to learn more about the military through through these novels, because the protagonists often had backgrounds that I wanted one day. And typically back then it was Army Special Forces Vietnam, Navy SEAL Vietnam, Marine Sniper Vietnam, CIA paramilitary Vietnam. That was typically the background.
Yeah.
So I would be
Yeah.
like, well, can't check anything online, so you have to say, "Oh, David Morrell probably did some research here on this character." The Nelson DeMille probably did some research on this character. So at the same time, I was studying these novels through that lens. I was also enjoying them, and all those people that I mentioned, I mean, they're obviously top of their game, and because they were the top of their game, there was that one thing, that intangible that you can't really point to if you read a how-to book, because it's heart, and like all the best
Yeah.
things out there when we're looking at books, at movies, at television shows. There's one thing that stands out about those ones that break out or that really touch you, and that's heart. And there's no formula for heart. So that was really my goal as a writer, was to do that same thing after my time in the military, were to write things that had heart. And had that
Yeah.
same magic for people that I had growing up reading books. And so yeah, hopefully I, get better at that with each and every novel.
Well, I would say you have done very well at catching and having the heart in the stories because, and James Reese he's a very relatable guy, even though like I was never in the military. I have never enacted the vengeance and stuff that he has. But he's a relatable guy and he's a likable guy, and it was actually it's kind of cool for you to even have the foresight with Chris Pratt like in mind going even to the show. Like it's kind of cool that you already were like the dude on the TV is going to do such dark stuff that I need a guy that people just like. Like I mean, he's got to be a likable guy, and
Yeah.
all the amount. One of the things that has always fascinated me with your story is one how even like you said as a kid you were like I want to be a SEAL and then I'm going to be a writer, and it wasn't like I've never heard you say like I'm going to give it a shot at doing this. It's always I'm going to be a SEAL and I'm going to be a writer. And that's the thing, like man, I want to know, where did your certainty in it come from? Because it's not cocky like arrogant. It's like I know this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. Where did that come from?
I don't know. It's some of it was inherent. I was just born with it, and that calling to serve in the military and then to write thrillers. Like those are the two callings, and both are professions. And I think there's a difference between a profession and a career, which is why it's not called the career of arms. It's called the profession of arms. And I look at writing as
Yeah.
a profession as well. So I guess I was always appreciative of where I came from, meaning that I was born in this country, that I won the lotto by being born here, meaning that I get to choose my own path. I get to make my own decisions and then live with the consequences of those decisions and then build on both the successes and the failures moving forward. So most places in the world don't, most people in the world don't have that option, don't have those opportunities. So I recognized that very early on. I don't know where that came from. I think it probably came from just knowing that my grandfather served in World War II and was killed in World War II. So I grew up with his medals and the silk maps they gave aviators back then. And there's a show on TV called Black Sheep Squadron at the time where Pappy Boynton, played by Robert Conrad, is flying the same plane that my grandfather flew, which is the Corsair, which are the gull wings
Awesome.
that fold up. So I had these heroes that sacrificed everything so that I could live the life that I have, or that I could make these decisions going forward. So it was
Yeah.
just always something that I appreciated, probably because of that family connection. I just recognized it. I wasn't told it ever. No one ever said, "Hey, you should be appreciative of what you have because your grandfather laid down his life for this nation." No one ever said that. They didn't have to. I think it was, once again, the power of popular culture. Black Sheep Squadron I just cited, or the movies I'd watched with my dad back then, like The Longest Day or Hell is for Heroes, or all these World War
Yep.
II movies. They just gave me an appreciation for all we had. You see these, watch The Longest Day. I mean, it's black and white film, and people are coming up over those beaches at Normandy and just getting mowed down by people in elevated positions with automatic weapons. And I mean, those guys did that, and I'm not doing that. I'm a kid here in the United States. I'm 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 year old, and those guys did that for me. So I guess I always
Yeah.
just knew that I was appreciative. I think that's all it really is. And so I recognized that and listened to that calling of, oh, military service, okay, and then found out about SEALs. Like, That's it. And then write thrillers. I'm like, okay, those guys did that for me. So that I could do those
Yeah.
things. That helped me in floods too, SEAL training. So I'm in the surf zone, freezing. The water's rushing over you as you're linked arms, or you're doing push-ups, or the logs over your head, or you have it on your chest like this, and the water's coming in, and you're just in. And I would think, and you see people quitting in droves, and I was like, you know what, I'm not doing. I'm not running over the beach where there's no cover, there's no concealment, and I'm just running through just a hail of machine gun bullets. Guess what? I'm not doing that, or I'm not going over the beach at Iwo Jima. And I was like, I can stand it here in the water a little while longer. Those guys gave me the opportunity to be here. I could make the choices. I could volunteer for this. Yeah, I can volunteer out, and a lot of people certainly are right now ringing that bell. Those guys did that for me. I can stand a little more harassment here in the surf zone in Coronado, California.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, man, I know your time is very limited. So I mean, I feel like that's an awesome spot to close on, because I mean, we were just talking about, we live in like the age of entitlement almost, in my opinion. And I would like to see we need to get back to that age of appreciation. What I would say that was. And Jack, man, I could talk to you for hours, but again, I know, like we said at the beginning, your iron is in many fires. I encourage everybody. I have In the Blood. I did get to read it. This one to me, it kind of goes, it almost felt like it went back to the roots a little bit on this one to me. Like, I still I love all of them. The Terminal List is still probably my favorite. But I'm going to tell you, In the Blood has it took me back kind of to Terminal List. It's got a lot of that. I don't know. You knocked another one out of the park. I feel like I say that every time, but you hit a home run on In the Blood. So May 17th, is that when it comes out?
May 17th, yeah. Hardcover, ebook, and audiobook. And I didn't start out to write this one as the most action-packed. It just naturally happened that way. I think it's the most action-packed of all of them, and I certainly had a fantastic time writing it, that's for sure. But I also want to switch it up. Each and every the books are different, because I didn't want to just take, once again, people are trusting me with their time, and I want to make it everybody's life. We go on these journeys, and different things happen to us along the way based off decisions that we make or decisions that other people make. But it's still, you got to keep moving forward. We're all on this journey, just like James Reese is. So that's why I kind of move back and forth. Like, hey, I think I need to be I'm going to add a little more geopolitical element to this one, or hey, I'm going to get really deep and dark in this one, very personal, or hey, I'm going to combine those two. So I'm going to keep playing with that and keeping people so they just don't say, oh, I know what's going to happen now. Okay, it's the same thing as last time, but instead of America, now it's Europe, or instead of America, or instead of Europe, now it's Africa. Okay, or instead of America. So I need to keep exploring these different things as the character continues to grow and evolve, and on a journey just like we are all on.
Well, like I said, man, I loved it, and it is cool to see the different variations, because The Devil's Hand to me was the most different of all of them that you've written, in my opinion. Like, it had the violence in it, but it was a different kind of violence almost. Yeah, this one. And that's probably why I said I kind of rank it back up there, because again, I love the violence. But I'll say that the ending to this one is like the freaking cliffhanger of the century. So, guys, you got to check out In the Blood when it drops. Are you still selling the? I know you had some pre-orders signed. Can people still get those, or are those?
Still some I shot through a bunch of title pages, and then those got sewn in at the binding process from Simon & Schuster. So those went really quick. Those were all for independent bookstores across the country, trying to help those independent bookstores kind of give people a reason not to hit the easy button on Amazon, but to go to support their independent bookstore locally. But I think now there are some signed ones from Barnes & Noble that are still out there. You can go to my website, officialjackcarr.com, and hit In the Blood, and then there should be a little link to signed books. And then of course there'll be a book tour coming up, and we'll be announcing the dates and locations and times fairly soon.
Awesome. And your podcast, Danger Close, on all platforms?
That's it. Apple, Spotify, and the Jack Carr YouTube channel. So that is out there Wednesdays and Fridays, and I'm having a blast doing that.
Absolutely, man. Well, guys, y'all go check it out. Again, like I said, I could talk to Jack all day. y'all check the books out, check his podcast out, everything. He's killing it. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I hope that y'all have enjoyed this one. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the like button and the subscribe and share it with your friends. If you're listening, then leave us a rating and a review. And guys, I hope y'all have a good one.